Hey, it's Patrick, the principal farmer with Your Faith Farms, 30 acres and a mule. Just gonna add this one to our Before You Buy a Farm series. This is my neighbor's farm. So our properties, his property and my property, had been owned since 1908 by a family by the name of the Jones family. And when I purchased in 2014, we were the first family to break that cycle. And since 1908 to 2014, you can just imagine how much wealth was made, how many memories were made. And, you know, of course, we're trying to duplicate that success and also to change the narrative. Because you do know that success during that time in Georgia came with some other realities. And while I have you, I'll share one of those realities. So I'm in the property one day and someone pulls up to the gate right here, and you know, gate's closed, so how can I help you? And the lady says, oh, I'm with a movie location scouting program. And I'm like, okay, you know, we had recently just done a TV show, so we were kind of used to that kind of conversation. And I said, she said, yeah, you know, we're not out just looking. I came specifically to your property. I'm like, okay. And she's like, you know, I want to ask you a question. Okay, what's your question? And she begins to stutter, and the next thing that comes out of her mouth is, well, it's not racist. And I'm like, what? Yeah. So she says, well, you know, there's some history on your property. Well, at that time, I didn't know what history she was referring to. Of course, you know, we assumed there was some kind of history on the property, but hearing her, you know, okay, go a little further. Well, then she begins to talk about the Jones tree. Right? And I'm like, the Jones tree? And she's like, yeah, the Jones tree. And she's like, it's either that tree, or a tree down the road. And I'll add the picture of the tree down the road later. And so I'm like, okay, well, continue. And she kept talking. I'll be honest with you, I kind of, at that point, I had zoned out a little bit to get all of the details, because, you know, now, you know, like, you giving me a fact, not the assumption that we had, you know, not the eerie feelings that we had, but like, you're giving me facts now, right? And so so she started, you know, talking, and again, I did kind of lose some of the details, but they were scouting because they wanted to do a reenactment. Right. So they wanted to do a reenactment of a police officer and a black man who were hung on the Jones tree. And at that point I was like, ma'am, I'll be honest with you. There is no amount of money right now that you could even offer me that would cause me to want to recreate a scene that my children and my wife and myself would be coming out to and see a black man and an officer hanging from a tree. Like it's not even worth that for us. And so I kind of dismissed her very politely, but I dismissed her and I was like, that's okay, we're good. But it made me start to look at all these trees a little differently, and you start thinking about, the memories and the stories if these trees could talk. And so, that's part of repurchasing land. That's part of getting back to a reality and changing the narrative. And, while that's a painful history, painful memories, the reason that we bought the land is for our ancestors' tears to be wiped away, and we can change that narrative. So it is what it is, but it's your faith forms now, and the blood-stained battle and the soil and the trees that carried that strange fruit. Now those memories will change. So that's just part of it. So as you go out there and find that land, know you will run into some realities. But at Your Faith Forms, we're changing the future. And the future will have a different story to tell. Just a little more before you buy a farm, things you should know from Patrick, the Principal Farmer, and Your Faith Forms. Thank you all. Continue to watch us. We're coming from the heart. We share the truth. We're not part of those other kind of multi-level. This is what we live. This is our everyday grind. So just sharing a little information at Your Faith Forms. Make sure you click and subscribe and spread the word. More to share. Peace. Did you click subscribe?